So this video is going to take us through how you would go about stating, explaining, applying the law of intoxication, which is a general defence, to a scenario question. So we start with the question: discuss Alex's criminal liability for the injuries caused to Barry. Really short, simple scenario question. Alex and Barry are on the pavement arguing about a debt. Alex, who's been drinking excessively, suddenly lashes out at Barry with his fist, breaking his nose. So if this was a real exam question, you would have had to have established by stating, explaining, applying the offence or offences that are relevant. But that's not something we're going to do here. We're just going to focus on that general defence. So you're going to introduce it. This is something that students quite often forget to do. They launch straight into the elements of the defence without telling me what the defence is and how it operates. So make sure that you introduce by saying intoxication is a general defence available where the defendant has taken drink or drugs and is incapable of forming the mens rea required for the crime. So this table shows you essentially what you're going to be doing. You're going to be explaining voluntary and involuntary intoxication, explaining basic and specific intent crime, and then you're going to be tallying up which of these our defendant has and going into more detail on each one of these. So if it's voluntary intoxication with a specific intent crime, you'd be focusing in on this box. If it was basic intent crime and involuntary intoxication, you'd be focusing in on this box. So let's have a look how it's going to apply to our defendant. So we're going to have to state for our examiner that the court needs to know if the defendant is voluntarily or involuntarily intoxicated. You're going to explain each one. Voluntary is where the defendant has chosen to consume the drink or the drugs or the alcohol. Involuntary intoxication is where the defendant's drink has been spiked, but also if they've taken a prescription drug or they've taken what's known as a soporific drug, so a calming drug, and it's had the opposite effect. So in our case, it appears that our defendant is voluntarily intoxicated. It appears on the facts that he's taken the alcohol by choice. There's nothing to suggest that he hasn't. The court also needs to know if the crime is one of basic or specific intent. So we're going to explain that a specific intent crime is one where the mens rea consists of intention only. And it's the offence, not what our defendant actually intended here. So your specific intent crimes that we need to focus in on are Section 18 GBH, murder, theft, robbery, burglary. The other offences that we know about, so assault, battery, Section 47, Section 20, manslaughter, are all basic intent crimes because you can be reckless. It doesn't matter whether our defendant was, it could be. So in this case, a broken nose is Section 47 APH, and the mens rea of this offence includes recklessness, so it's going to be a basic intent crime. And then we have our specifics where we're tallying these up. So if the defendant is voluntarily intoxicated, this can be a defence to specific intent crimes because our defendant can't form the mens rea, as seen in Sheenan and Moore. If there's a lower basic intent crime available, then the court will mitigate it down to this offence. So murder will go down to manslaughter, but theft, robbery, burglary, there isn't a lower offence available, so they're just not guilty. Moving on, if the defendant has the mens rea, then they will be guilty of the offence as seen in Gallagher, which showed that drunken intent through gaining strength or confidence through drinking alcohol was still intent. If the crime is one of basic intent, then intoxication cannot be a defence since becoming voluntarily intoxicated is a reckless action, as in Majewski. And if the defendant is involuntarily intoxicated, the intoxication can be a defence to specific intent crimes if our defendant lacks the mens rea, as in Hardy, but will not be a defence if the defendant has the mens rea, as in Kingston. And involuntary intoxication can be a defence to basic intent crimes because they weren't reckless as to becoming intoxicated in the first place. And we're going to apply this by saying, therefore, our defendant was reckless as to becoming voluntarily intoxicated. He formed the mens rea at this point, and therefore he cannot use the defence. Therefore, Alex cannot use the defence of intoxication.